Welcome back to the At Home with Roby show. Visit us today at andrewroby.com. That's Andrew, ROBY.com. I'm Ashley Davis along with Trent Haston. Trent, we're still joined in the studio, by the way, with Wilson Worley. Wilson, thanks for being here. Trent, we're talking about senior living, Roby Cross. I know you've done a lot of work with Wilson over the years. A lot of great things happening in the active adult community.
Yes, we're glad to have Wilson. What Wilson was talking about before the break was very educational and interesting. I'm going through, I spoke last week, helping my mom, or Roby Realty is with the beach house. And, she's still young, but she's starting to age. She's my mom, and I'm aging. And I told her to write down what she needed in a house, and not only just 5 bedrooms or 3 baths or whatever, but also what do you need? I mean, do you need it on one floor? How do you need access? I mean, beach houses that are multi-story, sometimes have elevators, stuff like that. So I think that's a good lead in with Wilson. I would like to know what services you see or are foretelling that seniors are looking for or going to need in the future.
Okay. Our very first active adult community was developed back in the mid-'80s in Greenville, South Carolina, and what we found there were people not wanting to move into a high-rise, let's say, type of apartment complex or into a congregate type of living environment. What they wanted to do is either live in their own home or live in a rental apartment with access to services so that as they aged in place, when they needed those services, they could get them. So what we did was we took most of the services you would find in a continuing care or retirement community, pulled them out and said, okay, how can we deliver these services to those folks in active adult housing? And that's what we did. And those services consisted of, and still do, emergency call service. If someone has a slip in the bathtub or if they fall in the kitchen, we have a I won't try to explain the system, but they could get assistance by accessing the emergency call system, much like you'd find in a nursing home or in a hospital system. Also, folks were looking for well-rounded wellness programs that would assist them in staying well, and exercise programs, yoga classes, those kinds of things. But then we brought in visiting nurses on a regular basis, where the nurses checked, just blood pressure checks and medications to make sure there weren't medications that were overlapping each other, that kind of thing. Another important part that we brought into the communities and all of our other communities as well is what is called a vial of life. That's rolled up in a little tube, put in the refrigerator of the occupant's home, of their past medical history, the medications they're taking, any type of allergies or any reactions to medications, those kinds of things, so that when the emergency responders came in, they pull that vial of life out and they got it right there, especially if the person's not cognitive at the time where they can articulate that to the responder. Neighborhood checks, where our neighbors are checking on each other to make sure we're up and around that day. That's not maybe as important when we're at 55 and 60, but when we get to 70 and 75 and 80, it does become important. Home health care into the community itself when people needed it. On-site managers that will help bring these type of services into the residents who live there. That's very important. You got to have someone coordinating the services.
Yeah, we've talked about, as we look at developing some communities, some age-restricted communities that are still independent, single-family housing, we're looking at some projects. You've talked about getting a number of houses where you have the bandwidth that you can bring that on-site manager, and it makes perfect sense because you have the more residents, it keeps the cost down to continue that service. But just having somebody, that's their whole job, especially as a kid of a senior, there's somebody living in the neighborhood that works 40, 50 hours a week, and they're there 24 hours a day. Their whole job is to make sure that mama's okay, and just it's a peace of mind. And they become friends, and if they need something, you have a business manager, so to speak, to handle it. I think that is the coolest thing.
Well, the peace of mind, that says a lot right there. It's not just the peace of mind of the people who are living in the community, but it's their family's peace of mind. Some of those families are living across the country, and they'll call the manager to ask, how's mom and dad doing? What is mom and dad really doing?
Yeah, I mean, Wilson, I talk about it every show. We're not just a contracting firm; we're a communications firm, and this even takes it to the next level. We're not just trying to develop communities for construction and to get in and get out. We're trying to build a community where families can age and grow, and we communicate that to the vertical integration of the family. And it being National Grandparents' Day, I do want to give a shout out to my wife's grandmother. Every time we go to Illinois, that's who we visit. I think she's 89 years old right now, and I don't think she's going back. She's been in the hospital for a little while. She's doing really well, but I think she's going to go into a senior community. It'll be the first time she has not gone and lived independently in the farmhouse that we stay in when we go. So I want to give a shout out to Boots, who talking about World War II, buddy. She was a World War II warrior. So.
And probably the coolest nickname for a grandmother I've ever heard, Boots.
Yeah, she's about 4'4". She's a little taller than 4'4". I exaggerate both ends.
All right, Wilson, thanks so much for being here today. Great insight. If you want to know more about some of the work we're doing on the Roby Cross side and the active adult communities, you can go to andrewroby.com. Trent, great show today, bud.
Thank you, and thank you, Wilson, for being here, bud.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir.
All right, for Trent Haston and the entire Roby family of companies, I'm Ashley Davis. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Sunday at 9 a.m. We hope you will be as well for the At Home with Roby show. Visit andrewroby.com. That's andrewroby.com. And remember, it's National Grandparents' Day, so happy Grandparents' Day to everybody out there that's listening. I hope you have a great day. We'll be back next week. Remember, you're always at home with Roby.